Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ice Time, where we dive into some of the big ideas around the NHL. I'm Mike Fink, and I'm very excited to be joined by Sylvie McCarthy. She's been on a few times already. She was on the on Ice Time last season multiple times. Covers the Pittsburgh Penguins for the Hockey Writers, and is going to be covering another team next season. Maybe Sylvie, you could fill us in on which team you're covering. But Sylvie, how are you doing? How's the summer been going so far?
It's been really good. It's been super busy and but it's been good. And like you said, I am still writing about the Penguins, obviously, but I'm super excited to be also covering the Savannah Ghost Pirates in the ECHL. I can't wait for their season to get started and the NHL season to get started. It's just like a super exciting time.
Yeah, it really is an exciting time. We're previewing the season ahead, and you're covering the ECHL. You're getting your foot in the door, which is exciting stuff. And the ECHL is one of those leagues where you're gonna be able to get a lot of great stories out of. So it's exciting stuff, but we're not talking about the ECHL or even the AHL, which is what I cover a lot of. We're gonna talk about some borderline playoff teams where, as we said, the summer's kind of wrapping up now and the season's around the corner. So we're going to talk about some of the borderline playoff teams, and we're going to just kind of take a close look at these teams and say which ones are going to make the playoffs, which ones do we not feel are going to make the playoffs, which ones are we high on. So I'll start with you, Sylvie, which is what's a team that's in that mix? Obviously, not those like cup contenders like the Panthers, the Oilers. If they don't make the playoffs, something's really wrong.
Yeah.
And there's some teams that we're just projecting, barring a miracle, they're going to be at the bottom of the standings. But there's a big middle right now. Like almost more than half the league. So I'll start with you. What's a borderline playoff team, that a bubble team that you're really high on as we head into the season?
So a team that I had that's kind of that on the bubble borderline playoff team, I have the Montreal Canadiens, and I know obviously they went to the playoffs last year. They got that second spot in the Eastern Conference, obviously lost to the Capitals, but I think there's a definite chance that they make it back there this season. Obviously, they picked up Noah Dobson in the off season, and I think with him like on your first defensive pairing and Patrick Lane on your second defensive pairing, that's could be huge, or Lane Hudson, I'm sorry, on your second pairing, that could be huge for them. And I know they're expecting big things out of Ivan Demidov this coming season. And I think it would be interesting to see him and Patrick Lane on that second line. I think they could be explosive together. I think the biggest thing for me with the Canadians, if they can get consistency out of that first line, made up of Caulfield, Suzuki, and I always butcher his name, Slavskovsky, then
Slavkovsky, yeah.
yeah, I think that that could be huge for them if they can get consistency out of their top six and obviously depth scoring. I think they could definitely be a team that can make it back to the playoffs.
What's so interesting, you mentioned Dobson as the top pairing, Lane Hudson as the second, and it's interesting because I think you're going to see a mix of that. The
Mm-hmm.
question really for the Canadians is they have the talent now. You know they have the talent. Dobson, Lane Hudson, their top line of Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slavkovsky last season was at the end of the last season was one of the best top lines in the NHL, probably like a top five or maybe even the best at some points. But they have the talent, and now the question is, can they put it together? As in,
Mm-hmm.
can they find the right chemistry? Because I think the wild card you met, and Patrick Line, it's interesting because he hasn't been that X factor this season. Like last season, they brought him in. He wasn't that X factor. He was good in spurts, but wasn't that consistent point producer that they were expecting. And what's really interesting with them is Demidov's there now. He's a top line talent. The question is, do they keep him on the second line and have him work with Line and whoever is the second line center, whether it's Kirby Doc, Alex Newhook, or the other option is you move him to the top line and bump someone out of that top line and maybe run the risk of messing with the chemistry. And it's interesting because I actually had the Canadians as that borderline playoff team, but in a different sort of discussion, which is them and the Senators I grouped together, which is I think they're going to make the playoffs. That's not what I'm wondering about. My question is, are they going to become a cup contender this season? Are they good enough to do that? I actually would turn it over to you, which is for those two teams, you could group them together because I mean they have their different strengths that make them that cup contender or cup caliber type of team. The Canadians have the assets to move to even get better by that halfway through the season, and the Senators have all those pieces in the right place. But do you see those teams when I say I'm high on them? I look at them as potential cup contender type of teams by the end of the season. Do you see them that way, or do you still say, okay, I want to pump the brakes a bit on them because they were there for the first time in the playoffs? Maybe it still takes some time for them to develop and get over the hump.
Yeah, for me, I think it's still a little bit early to say that. I think the Montreal Canadiens definitely could be, like you said, if they can put it all together. But I think it might just be a little early for me to call them a cup contender. They could definitely do that. I just don't know yet if I see them putting it all together this season.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say, yeah, that's the thing. It's a really young team. I mean, I
Yeah.
want to be optimistic and say they're the sleeping giant. They still are a young
Mhm.
team. I think for the Canadians specifically, they goaltending's a question mark, and it's still
Yeah.
going to be. And I mean, Jakub Dobish is their a wild card young goaltender, so maybe he becomes their primary starter and becomes a great starter. But if, until then, there's still an unknown in that category.
Mhm.
Uh, so it's interesting because for them, there's a possibility with them and the Senators that both of them take a step back and miss the playoffs. I don't see that. And for me, I'm a little higher where I'm like, there's a chance that they could be both become cup contenders if they make the right moves. Obviously, it's easier for Montreal to do that. That's why I'm a little more optimistic on their outlook. At the same time, they do have some bigger needs that maybe they need to address. But yeah, if the talent's there and it's clicking, they're going to be a great team. And that's the big thing. I'll I'll throw a team at you. I know you picked an Eastern Conference team, so I guess I'll go out west and see how high I am on this team, how high you are on this team, which is I'm high on the Calgary Flames here as a team that makes the playoffs. And I know it's not a popular pick. They averaged 2.6 goals per game last season. They don't get a lot of offense. They didn't really address that. At the same time, I look at the how you have Dustin Wolf in net. You have arguably a top five goaltender in the NHL. I know he's coming off a rookie season and he's still young and he's still got a lot of unproven play in him where he just came on the scene. He's there. I like their defense and they may not score a lot, but they'll win a lot of low scoring games. And I think in a Pacific Division that's up for grabs after the top two or three spots, they're a team that can add on the pile up the wins and sneak in as a three seed. I wonder, are you high on the Flames, or maybe you're just from your distance pumping the brakes on them a bit?
So for me, the Flames are kind of on that lower end. I don't know, like you said about goaltending, I definitely think they have an amazing goaltender, and I think they are a very defensive team. I think kind of in uh today's NHL, like the way that you win games is by scoring goals. And I don't know that they are that team. Like you said, I definitely think they could win a lot of low scoring games, but I think I just don't think they have everything in place yet. Particularly their scoring, but goaltending and defense are definitely huge. You can't really win without those two either. So I don't know. I mean, they definitely could make the postseason. I don't know that they have it together yet to do that.
They really are the peak borderline team because it's
Yeah.
like depending on if their goaltending and defense is good enough, that'll
Yeah.
get them in. And it's interesting because in the NHL nowadays, so many teams don't have that number one goaltender, don't have a great
Hmm.
goaltender. And teams they're rotating between two, they're splitting two. And you look at a lot of these teams that are great in the NHL. You could throw in I mean, you can look at the Hurricanes, the Oilers. They don't have a number one goaltender. And they don't really have a true goaltender they can lean on, even during the
Hmm.
playoffs, as we've seen with both those teams. And you could even throw a few other teams in there into that mix, whether it's Vegas or uh, you get the point there, where there's a
Hmm.
lot of these great teams. And what I find interesting, and this is why I really wonder about the Flames here, is in a league that devalues not devalues goaltending as much as there's not a lot of number ones. How valuable is a number one? Because
Hmm.
I look at the Winnipeg Jets, for example. I think they're going to be fine. As much as people are saying, oh, they're going to regress and whatever, they're still going to be a great team because
Hmm.
you have Connor Hellebuck and he
Hmm.
steals you a few games. And I wonder, do you see that where Dustin Wolf can? I mean, maybe that's the thing. Is he good enough to steal enough games to get into the playoffs? Maybe I'm just throwing another question out there, but I wonder are or am I too high on him? You need a good supporting cast and their offense isn't there, and they need to address that before they're really in that playoff conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I think goaltending is so important, and just for an example, like the Penguins have had awful goaltending, and we see what has happened. So I think that's a good point. He might very well be good enough to kind of get them there. Like that combined with their defense very well could give them that push that they need. I don't at all think that they would be a cup contender, but good enough to make the playoffs just based off of their defense and their goaltending. That very well could be.
And I think for them getting to the playoffs, yeah, obviously they're not going to be in the cup discussion, but getting to the playoffs would go a long way for them just because it makes you an attractive team in the offseason. It makes them a type of team that can make an aggressive trade and get that forward talent needed to take that step forward. I think what's crazy is they actually were tied point wise with the Blues. I think they both ended with 97 or 96 points, and the Blues had the tiebreaker, so they made the playoffs. The Flames did not. They're that close. They were that close when they averaged 2.6 goals per game. I think it was interesting. You mentioned we were talking about goaltending here. You mentioned the Penguins, where their goaltending was a mess, and a lot. I think what's interesting. That's another interesting point here is the bottom falls out when you have bad goaltending, which they did. The Flyers do slash did. A few other teams that were at the bottom of the Chicago had that for a long time that last season. The bottom falls out when you have
Mm-hmm.
terrible goaltending. If you have good goaltending, it raises your floor. It can't necessarily raise your ceiling. And I think that's the another team. The Rangers had great goaltending. I mean, they had a number
Mm-hmm.
one Shesterkin, but he couldn't get them to the playoffs. So I think they are that bubble team to watch. I think they're the bubble team. Like when I think about like all these teams, like where could they go? There's a lot of options for them, and it's kind of interesting to see what happens with them. I'm talking enough, so I'm going to turn it over to you because you're not as high on the Flames. What's a team that you're really just sold on or sold off of? I don't know which word to use for that, but which team are you not high on? Where you're a bubble team that you're like, I'm not buying any stock on them.
So this might be a little controversial, but I had the Washington Capitals as a team that, not to take away anything from what they did last year. Obviously, they went on an amazing run that I don't think any of us saw coming. But I also think that the conditions in the Metro last season kind of favored that. Obviously, going into this season, Carolina is going to be just as good, if not better, than they were last season. Obviously, New Jersey struggled a lot with injuries, and I think they're going to get back on track. They have Jack Hughes back, which is huge for them. And obviously, I think we're all waiting with bated breath to see which New York Rangers team shows up this season. But I think, with Sullivan there now, they might also be getting back on track. So I just don't think that we're going to see another 111-point season from the Capitals again. And they definitely, obviously, could prove me wrong, but I don't see it happening for them again like it did last season.
I think two things could be true at the same time. This is what I think about the Capitals because I agree to a point, and this is I think they overachieved last season, and it was just everything went right
Mm-hmm.
where their offseason off first of all, where they just went on a heater and added all this talent to round out both their forward unit and their defense and goaltending for that matter. They got Logan Thompson, and he became their primary starter and they had no issues and they overachieved and they had the best record in the Eastern Conference. I think that's not happening again. I don't think they're gonna. I don't think that's. I think they'll regress a bit.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I don't know. This is why it's interesting about the Metropolitan Division. I don't know who overtakes them.
Mm-hmm.
Who is better? Which team do you like better? I'll actually throw this over to you. Which team? You said the Rangers, which also like they're one of those teams that everything went wrong. So maybe
Mhm.
if things balance out, they're one of those teams again. I think there's bigger issues with the Rangers that may prevent them maybe from making that leap. At the same time, like which team is there? I mean, is it the Rangers or is there some or are you basically would you say in the Metropolitan Division there's a team that could surprise like the Capitals did last year or last season and overtake them while they regress and they're on that wild card bubble position and they get bumped out.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Carolina. I think that's probably the obvious answer, but I think they obviously do a lot of things right. And I also think that the Devils are gonna be a factor this year. Obviously, they really weren't last year at all, but I think obviously that was, due to injuries. And I think that it's good for me. I really like Carolina and I like the Devils. I think that they're gonna come back this season in a big way. And again, I agree with you about the Rangers. There is other issues there, but I just, we just don't know what's gonna come from them. So uh, it is possible that the Capitals kind of, I don't think they'll go on another run like they did last season, but they might surprise us all again. But I really like Carolina and New Jersey in the Metro.
But that's the interesting thing is that it still feels like even not the worst case scenario as much as a bad season from from the Capitals still gets them the 3 seed. I feel like it's
Yeah.
hard. That's the
Yeah.
big thing. I think I mean then again it's always this is the thing. It's always possible
Hmm.
in the Metro that a team backs their way into the 3 seed. The
Hmm.
Islanders did it a few years back, and
Hmm.
technically, the Devils did it last season, where there were no good teams in the Metro, and the
Right.
Devils were not playing good hockey. They did not have Jack Hughes, they didn't have Dougie Hamilton. They just kind of backed
Right.
their way into that 3 spot. So it's possible that that's what happens again this season. It's interesting because it still feels like that's the capital spot, even if they don't win the Metro and the Hurricanes and the Devils pass them. It feels like it's theirs to lose. Then again, I mean, it could be that the Rangers back themselves into that spot, or one of the other teams that overachieves. So I think, yeah, that's what's interesting is that they're one of those teams that maybe I wouldn't be as high on them this season. At the same time, like,
Hmm.
yeah, that's what's so tricky is that it's hard seeing them falling that far down, even when their whole team overachieved. That's what it. I mean, it's what could go either way. I guess I'll throw. Which team should I say that I'm not buying it on? Because I'll actually go with another team that would probably be controversial here. And I guess I'm staying in the Western Conference. You're picking Eastern Conference teams, and I'll pick some Western Conference teams. I guess we're balancing out the league that way. I don't know, but I'll pick the Los Angeles Kings here,
Okay.
and they're just always the 3 or the 2 seed, and it always seems like they're a lock. And they have a great team and a great core still. And then I think like, have we just seen the best version of this team? And have we seen when now they have a new management, Ken Holland comes in and brings in all these players with the idea of I want to beat the Oilers, but forgetting
Hmm.
about the regular season.
Hmm.
And that backfires where you have Cody Cece, you have Corey Perry. There's a chance that we look at this team halfway through the season and not only are they injury plagued, but they got real old really fast. And I think we can see a team that looks like that this season. It would be crazy to see them fall out, but I mean, part of me also is saying that I have the Flames in. So I guess if the Flames are in, the Kings are out. I don't. Am I? Is it that crazy though to say that that the Kings can drop that because their core is still great. You have like Kevin Fiala, Anze Kopitar, you have Philip Deneau still playing at a high level. You have Quentin Byfield. I'm probably missing a few players as well. Uh, but like, am I crazy to think they also got rid of a lot of the young talent too? So where do you stand on the Kings?
So that is definitely an interesting one, and I think like you make a lot of really good points. So for me, I have them in over the Flames, but I think that you to your point like that that very much could happen to them where the bottom could just fall out from under them because um but I'm just not ready to say. I think they will go back to the playoffs, and I think with the new management and everything, I still like them. I'm still pretty high on them, but I do see your point, and I think it's a definite possibility. I'm just not ready to go there, honestly.
Yeah, it feels extreme, and that's probably why
Yeah,
it's a controversial thing. It's we've got to make at least one bold one, even slightly
yeah,
bold one. But that's just the one I see. I think it's to add to that is that they traded away Jordan Spence. I think they're
yeah.
really leaning into we're going to be a veteran team for the playoffs. But to be a veteran team for the playoffs, you've got to be in the playoffs first. And older teams just don't have great regular seasons. And it could be that they maybe back their way in as a wild card team. I it's going to be interesting because I think what's interesting for them is if they're not in the playoffs, what that means for well, obviously Jim Heller, their head coach, probably gone, but what it means for like is in the big picture. I mean, the Kings are in the big picture where you wonder like how do they get out of this loop, which is you run into the Oilers every time. And for them, their answer was we got to get Corey Perry and these players. Corey Perry is up, who is on the Oilers and who makes the Stanley Cup final every year, so it's destined that you're going to make the final if you have him. But that
Mhm.
was their answer to it. But I don't know the way out, and it seems like they don't either. As much as this is
Mhm.
what they're trying to do, and if they don't if they miss the playoffs, maybe the answer is that they are going to blow it up, or they're going to be that team that looks to do a fire sale, do a crazy
Mhm.
trade deadline. I don't know. It's just they're one of those teams that I put them on my West Coast teams I forget exist list, which I
Yeah,
have like I have this list of teams that I don't
yeah.
realize they exist until the playoffs come around. I'm like, oh yeah, right,
Mhm.
they're around. They play. They're good, I guess. But all of a sudden, I feel like they're a fascinating team. I wonder if you feel the same way about the Kings all of a sudden that they're becoming an intriguing team just because of the bet they're making.
I definitely do. And I had them kind of highlighted as a team to definitely pay close attention to going into the season because obviously, yes, it does feel extreme to say that they would miss the playoffs or that they wouldn't go on like a deep playoff run, but it's definitely possible. I really like Perry, so I think he could be huge for them, but I definitely see the point that you're making, and it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, their core is still good enough that I think it's better than most, if not, I mean, the majority of their division, probably the Western Conference. So I
Mhm.
think, to be fair, like that core is good enough to get them in. And then now that they have those veteran pieces there, maybe they are good enough to go on a run. It's going to be interesting to see how that develops. All right, I guess let's head into some quick fire with some teams because there's a lot of teams I have listed here as borderline playoff teams. I basically grouped together every team not named the Penguins, Blackhawks, Predators, basically
Yeah.
like pretty much every team not listed there. So what I'm gonna do is mention a team. You tell me buy or sell. We're probably gonna add by the end of this. We're gonna have more teams in the playoffs than not. It doesn't matter. This is just like
Yeah.
this just to be like to give us a glimpse of okay, where do we stand on some of these teams, or like what's our quick outlook on these teams, buy or sell, and then quickly tell me why you buy or sell on these teams. I'll start with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
So I like the Blue Jackets. I think um that would be a team that I would buy. I think they have a lot of potential. I know that might be controversial, but I think if they can put it all together, I think that's what they've struggled with. But I see this being maybe the year that um they maybe can do that. I don't know. Like we'll see. I'm like saying that kind of hesitantly, but I like I would that would be a team I would buy.
They were the team. It's funny because I had them written down as one of the buy teams that I'm
Yeah.
high on them. Where like the Flames that they've been rebuilding and they have a good rebuild. I've been on top of their rebuild for a few years now,
Mhm.
and I like what they're building there, which is you have not only a good group in place, but you have star players.
Hmm.
The way Werenski looks like a star in the making. Adam Fantilli quietly in his second season put together a 30-goal season.
Hmm.
He's becoming there's a star in the making there as well. Goaltending still a question. They were actually the team that we were talking about the Capitals earlier. If there's a team I could see being the 3 seed and potentially sneak bumping a team
Hmm.
out, they're the team I could see doing it. So
Hmm.
I'm they're the team that I don't want to put them in yet per se, but they're the team to watch. Let's go with let's stay in the Metro, Philadelphia Flyers.
So that is not that I'm not really high on the Flyers. I think they have a lot of issues still to work out. Um, I don't see that. I see them being towards the bottom of the Metro. And yeah, I don't see them make that's definitely a team I would sell. I think there's still a lot of things that they are working on and working through, and they for me they just do not have it all together yet at all. So that would be a team I'd sell for sure.
I'm a cautious. That's the thing. I'm not going to sell as much as I'm higher on them than most people
I
are.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be one of those teams that gets close to the playoffs, but not quite, where you see the progress, but they're not there yet. That's kind
Yeah.
of where I am on the Flyers, where I their goaltending is still an issue. It was the worst in the league last season,
Hmm.
which is just a devastating feeling. But at the same time, Michkov, they've got a young group in place that's getting better. So I think they're going to be close. They're not going to be there yet. Let's stick with another team that feels like in that same picture, Detroit Red Wings.
So that is such a question mark for me. I think going into every season, I feel like those are like team like Columbus, Detroit, Philadelphia, like those are teams that kind of they seem to get really close, but then they just like fall apart in the end. And that's one of those teams for me that I feel like it could go either way. I I tend to lean towards like seeing them getting in, but then I'm like hesitant to say that as well because I don't know if they can like kind of cross that finish line. So that one I don't I don't want to say either way because I don't know for sure. It's like that question mark. Like I have them written down and I have a big question mark next to them.
It's funny because I keep selling on them where I'm not high on them, and
Yeah.
they're that team that's been getting close. You could
Yeah.
see that they're almost there, and the big thing is Steve Eisenman gonna make that big move that gets them over the hump? And the answer in the past few seasons has been no. And maybe this is the season that he does that. There's a lot of pressure on him to do that. There's a lot of pressure on the Red Wings to make the playoffs because their
Mhm.
rebuild, which has taken some time, is still taking time, and they're watching teams like the Senators and the Hurt and the Canadians pass them by. So
Mhm.
but the thing is, like, I'm still not high on them, and I think my big picture problem with the Red Wings and the same problem I have with another team that I'll actually just say I'm not high on either, and I'll ask you about them is uh they have a lot of singles and doubles and they should be hitting home runs. In the sense their star players or their core is a lot of good players, not great players that take over games.
Mhm.
Dylan Larkin, for example, Alex DeBrincat, they're good players. They're very good. You can build around them, but they cannot be the only players you build around. That's why
Mhm.
I'm not as high on them. It's similar because the team in the West that I have like that, I'm gonna say right away, I'm not high on them, even though a lot of people are. Is Utah. Same problem I have with them, which is that they have a lot of those singles and doubles. They're getting on base, and they've built the safe way, which is you get the good prospects, but they don't have that. They don't have that home run hitter. They don't have that type of player in their on their roster. So what do you think? Buy or sell on Utah?
So I actually really like Utah. I had them as someone that I would definitely buy. I had them as a team I would buy. I think, they came close last year, but I think injuries played a part in that. And I think their inexperienced core kind of didn't help either. But I think going into this season, they do have a strong young core. I think Clayton Keller is going to be huge for them. And then they did add Brandon Tanev and Nate Schmidt as kind of those veteran guys to kind of help the young guys. So I actually am pretty high on Utah. I think they'll definitely be an interesting team to watch this season.
They're for sure an interesting one. I think what's interesting is that a lot of people I think are higher on them because of their ownership, and there's this optimism for them because they have an owner that's willing to spend. They
Mhm.
have stability in place. And just are they going to get they get it like the Red Wings? Are they going to get over the hump? Let's stick in the Central Division for one other another team. The St. Louis Blues, buy or sell?
So the Blues are another one that's like I feel like always a question mark. I do kind of like them though. Heading to go to the playoffs this season, I think they have been putting things together really well, and I would cautiously say I like them to make the playoffs this season. I think they had a good season last year, and I think they're going to kind of build off of that. So I like the Blues.
I think a lot of people like the Blues, and it's funny because I feel like the contrarian here where I'm not high on the Blues, and a lot of people are high on them. A lot of people like them. A lot of people like the progress that they made, especially late
Mhm.
last season. At the
Mhm.
same time, if they don't win the 17 games in a row or some crazy number, they're
Yeah.
not even close to the playoffs. I think, yeah, a lot went right for them, and I have a lot going for them. At the same time, it feels for them the same way that just a lot went right last season, and they overachieved, and things might regress more than people think. I know I also
Mhm.
do like their off season. So
Mhm.
where they got like Logan Mayu, who's gonna be a good second pair or third pair defenseman. But overall, I'm like they might miss it by a few games this season. I'll
Mhm.
stick in the West for one more in the Western Conference, and then we'll wrap up in the East real quickly. Anaheim Ducks, buy or sell?
So I really like the Ducks. I had them written as a team that I see them making the playoffs. I think that they have a lot of good things like going for them. I think with Chris Kreider and Mikhail Granlund joining the team, that's going to be huge for them. And I think with the new head coach that's there, I think it's going to be interesting. And they need a good season from their goaltender, but I think if they can get that, then I for sure see them making the playoffs.
You mentioned their goaltender, and now all of a sudden I want to buy because Dostal's very good, and
Yeah,
people don't know he's very good. And
yeah.
now they have good coaching. They can
Mhm.
make up the difference there. And I this is the thing. I can't agree. Like I need to find a team that we could agree on because I'm still cautiously selling on them. Which is
Yeah,
I think they're going to be close. The
yeah.
rebuild they have all these young skaters hitting their primes now, entering their primes, and they're going to be close this season. The
Mhm.
question is if they have enough, and I think the big thing is their depth good enough, and is their depth, which is like the Kings, they have a lot of aging veterans there. You talk about Kreider and Granlund. They also have Jacob Truba there.
Mhm.
It's an older team on the back, um, really on their third pairing, fourth pairing, and their later defense pairings. I don't know if that is going to backfire or not. In the past, it has. So I don't know. Let's wrap up. Hopefully, we could agree on these two. So I'll just group them both together. You could tell me buy or sell for both, and then I'll wrap up with these two as well. Let's just group these two Eastern Conference teams together: the Buffalo Sabres and New York Islanders. Buy or sell?
So for the Buffalo Sabres, I would say bye. I think they are putting it together. For me, I don't the Islanders, I just can't they might surprise me and like you said earlier, back their way into that spot, but I don't know that I see it happening for the Island. I see it happening more for the Sabres than the Islanders. For me, I don't know that the Islanders are there yet, but they definitely could like back their way in like they have in the past. But that's for me that's how I feel about it right now.
It's
That could change, but
what's so funny is I'm sold on both, is that I'm not high on either. So we will
Yeah.
slightly agree there. The Sabres, it's the same story, but in the bigger picture, my problem with Sabres is it's a top heavy group where the pieces are good but don't mesh together, which is you could say it's a coaching issue, but it's just a bigger problem. Maybe Michael Kessler getting him in to round out the defense changes that. I'm not high on the Sabres, and goaltending also for them. The bottom really falls out when their goaltending isn't playing well, which it usually doesn't, to be frank. The Islanders, as much as I would be like new management, Matthew Darsh is there. There's a lot of optimism, and there's a youth movement coming. It's coming,
Mhm.
not yet. I think that's the thing. It's not there yet. They're a year away. They'll be interesting. They'll be in the mix, but I think yeah, they're not there yet.
Mhm.
So we'll agree on the Islanders not being in the playoffs. So we'll end with agreeing with each other. That's all we got though. Sylvie, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to get the season started.
Yeah, I mean, season's around the corner. I'm really excited, and as always, pleasure to have you on. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed. Please check out all of Sylvie's great work at the Hockey Writer. She's going to be have boots on the ground for the ECHL, which is exciting stuff as well. And you can check out all my work all over the place with Islanders and other NHL and AHL coverage and whatnot. But until then, I hope you enjoyed and tune in next time for another great episode. Thank you.